Final Fantasy VII Remake. Those four words are enough to bring tears to the eyes of thousands of gamers around the world. After 5 years in development, it's nearly ready for release, and to satiate the wait, Square Enix released a short demo. Having followed the game's hype despite never playing the franchise before, I gave it a go. For myself, it's a new series to try out after hearing so much about it over the years. The franchise first came to my attention with Final Fantasy XIII, which I passed on back in 2010 due to its middling critical reception and heavy criticism of its linearity. I had followed the history of the series with the game trailer's Final Fantasy retrospective in 2008, which was easily the most comprehensive guide to the series at that time. For the last decade, however, the series has been trending downwards. With the failure of Final Fantasy XIV and the somewhat lukewarm reception to Final Fantasy XV, the former did manage to redeem itself with A Realm Reborn, but there's no denying the long-running series hasn't been on the top of its game. This downturn in quality mostly passed me by as I stuck to other titles. For the fans though, Final Fantasy VII Remake stands as the most anticipated release, not just for this console generation, but perhaps the entirety of their gaming lives. The hype for Final Fantasy VII Remake has been so gargantuan that it dwarfs just about every upcoming release from the AAA sector. Of course, the excitement has been building long before its official announcement. It all started back in 2006 at Sony's E3 press conference. While the show was mostly a bland slog and a bad start for the PlayStation 3, one moment that did get people excited was a brief tech demo. It showed Final Fantasy VII running on new hardware with HD visuals that got audiences really excited, despite it not being an official game announcement. Things slowly began to take shape. Sony and Square never forgot that initial reaction. It would take 9 years and a bit of teasing before the announcement slammed into the industry at E3 2015. The build-up was slow, carefully crafted, the game's main theme creeping in. The iconic characters walked into frame, and a single word flashed up on screen: Remake. A masterful surprise that had the theatre and a good portion of the internet roaring with excitement. Even though I wasn't into the series, it was hard not to be swept up in the joy that swept the gaming world in June 2015. For those who played the 1997 original, it was a miracle, and for Sony it was a moment that cemented their presentation as one of the best in the show's history. From that point on, however, the remake slipped underground with barely a peep of new information surfacing. Fans were concerned over the game's progress as Square Enix kept development behind closed doors. Questions were raised over how it was shaping up and how it would be sold. At the time, Kingdom Hearts 3 was also in production, and it was announced that development would proceed in earnest after this title was released. Finally, the remake returned to the masses with a new trailer at Sony's State of Play event in May 2019. Following up with a more extended showing at E3 2019, Remake scooped up several awards and the final product started to come together. With just over a month before launch, the demo itself was released on the PlayStation 4 on March 2nd, 2020. With all that background, let's see how the game fares. Just like the original classic, 7 throws you right into the action with the Rebel Force Avalanche assaulting the main reactor at the centre of Midgar. Cloud Strife leaps off the train and we get right to it. Of course, the game's superb graphics made the initial impression. The environments, characters and combat flourishes all look stunning. The sheer scale is demonstrated within the first 5 minutes. Then we get to the combat, a modern update that falls in line with more extravagant action titles. Cloud slashes through his foes with Square, X pulls up the menu for assigning actions and items, and finally Triangle swaps between quicker strikes and more hard-hitting attacks under Punisher mode. It's certainly no hack and slash title, and you shouldn't expect to play it as one. Despite these limitations, combat is satisfying. Damage numbers pop, status effects flash on screen, and the attacks themselves are beautifully animated. Soon after this, and entering closer to the reactor, you get to control Barrett, the over-the-top commander of the team who specialises in ranged attacks. Holding down the button to fire his machine gun arm and being able to reach enemies Cloud can't, Square has done a fine job of setting the characters apart, something which will carry over when the likes of Aeris and Vincent enter in the final game. Traversal is straightforward and simple. Cloud easily hops over obstacles when needed, allowing the player to take in the environment and keep an eye out for item boxes. The HD remaster also brings with it a slew of dazzling effects, with the boss in particular leaping around the environment as opposed to standing still like he did in the original turn-based combat. Now for the things I wasn't so fond of. The tutorials are a little heavy at the beginning, stopping the game a fair bit. Though for newcomers it's a welcome entry point into all its little intricacies, they could have done a better job splitting these tutorials off throughout the demo. My biggest contention though comes with the dodge and block mechanics, which takes some getting used to. As the game falls somewhere in between action and turn-based gameplay, it can be difficult to tell whether either function will limit damage. Take the Scorpion Guardian boss for example. With its laser blasts and endless missile barrages, dodging with circle didn't seem all that viable. Maybe my timing was off, or it could be a limitation of trying to fit into both the classic and action RPG archetypes. It doesn't detract from the gameplay too much, and the older turn-based mode is still available for selection in the menus. So, as someone who has never played a Final Fantasy game before, I'd say 7 Remake is shaping up to be a solid title. The game looks fantastic, combat is fast and fluid, and the voice acting, while hammy at times, keeps in line with the nature of the series. My only source of skepticism is how they plan to sell it. The release in April will comprise only the first area of the game, with the rest of the content set to follow later. Splitting the game up into a potential trilogy and charging full price for each would be rather greedy on Square's part. With timed exclusivity on PS4 for 1 year, there's sure to be a huge surge in console sales as well. When you look at the bigger picture, this could be Square's moment, a chance to bring their most beloved franchise back to prominence. With their most popular title leading the charge, the series could be in for a much needed resurgence. Come what may, the game is set to be a smash hit in 1 week's time. Thanks for watching. Playing Final Fantasy VII for the first time definitely stood out from other RPGs I've played. Are you picking it up on day one, or curious to try it like I was? Let me know in the comments below. You can follow my blog at the links in the description.